friends that are tuning in. It's great to have you. I'm with the Story and Heart team today, and we're going to be trying to share some really helpful stuff about how to make 2020 your next year. Just basically, if you have a place that you're trying to get to with your creative ideas, if you want to start a company, if you want to go from freelance to full time, if you want to take just basically what you're doing with a camera more seriously next year. In this live stream, we really want to share some really helpful stuff to help make that happen and give you some practical takeaways and encouragement, and also dive through some of the questions that some of you are grappling with right now. Because I don't know, those that are tuning in, I don't know if you're similar to me, but usually when we get to the end of a year, I start to feel a bit of this pressure of, oh no, did I do what I was supposed to do this year? And is next year going to measure up to my expectations? And there's some of these interesting feelings, and you can either decide to be discouraged, or in the best case, you take action. And so we really want to give you some action items today. I've kind of come up with 4 rules that I think will be really helpful for moving that journey forward, kind of whatever stage you're at. So this is what I'm really pumped about. I really want to help people level up what they're doing. And the Story and Heart team, we put together a really fantastic experience workshop that kind of unpacks a lot of these details even more. But if you're just tuning in today for the first time, and this is the first time you're hearing me talk about some of these more practical approaches for building a business, I hope you get a lot of value out of it. And there's some special stuff that we're gonna share later, some discounts if that's up your alley.
Yeah, man. And we listen. We do have this workshop, but this webinar is really about real deliverables, takeaways. Everything that Levi is going to be sharing, we go into more detail in the workshop, but this is by no means a teaser. I do want to introduce real quickly a new member of the Academy team. That would be Alex. Alex is in our lobby.
Hey, y'all.
With the massive 70s peace sign behind him.
I love it.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm heading up the Academy growth initiatives as we gear up for huge expansion of our community in 2020. And but besides that, really my big focus since I've come on board with Story and Heart has been finding ways to bring more brands and more partners into the community here. Story and Heart and Levi both really shared the goal of helping filmmakers find the best way forward, whether that's finding the niche for them to grow their business in a way that's inspiring and sustainable and actually makes them happy, or finding out how to use the equipment that you have, or finding out how to tell really great stories in your films. And so one of our big pushes this year is going to be bringing more partners whose gear we can recommend full-throatedly, and giving you discounts to buy their stuff, and then teaching you specifically how to use it in a way that makes sense for your storytelling. So stick around to the end. We have a bunch of partners that have come on board for this event and have given us codes where you can save 15-20% on gear, and even stack that on top of their Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals and get some serious savings on gear that can really do a lot to help and equip and empower you for the growth of your business this next upcoming year.
Yeah, man, that's exciting. Before Levi dives in, I just want to tell you that, we're kind of like a little fanboys of Levi's. I mean, here at the office, we used to think that we led really exciting lives and that we did really fun things. And then we realized that really we were just following Levi. He was actually doing all the really fun stuff, and we were just kind of vicariously living through him. So this is an awesome opportunity. Levi talked about this call being kind of about these 4 action items, these 4 things to address. And Levi, how did that start with you? How did you come up with these 4, and where did this whole kind of journey to change how you were doing things start?
Yeah, and there's a ton of people here in the YouTube chat as well. And as we kind of dive in here, I'd love to hear what is a goal that you're setting, or a milestone you really want to reach in 2020, both in your business and maybe in a passion project. So it'd be really sweet to kind of see some of the stuff that you guys want to grow at in the coming year to give us a bit of a springboard. And then you can continue to ask questions as we go in here, because we're going to be trying to answer as many as we can get to. But I think what most people can relate to is that feeling of really getting excited about something that you enjoy doing. And I think that's why a lot of people that make videos want to do it as a business, because you think, hey, here's something that I'm passionate about. Here's something that I'll research endlessly for hours, and you don't have to pay me to do it. I will just start researching and I'll start making videos for fun. So why not take that and then build a business out of it? Because other people are doing it. I see people making a lot of money doing it. So why can't I? That's kind of the place that I found myself in. When I was getting into filmmaking, I had just basically experimented a ton, and it was basically a life-consuming hobby for me at that point, because I was spending all the money I was making from my part-time jobs on buying new cameras. I think most people can maybe relate to that, where every paycheck you think you're doing the math about what lens you might be able to upgrade to, or what slider you can get. But then eventually, once you've kind of got some of the foundational tools and you can actually make videos that are a playable video from beginning to end, and it's not just maybe your mom watching it anymore, you're actually getting some friends to get excited about it, then you're kind of like, how do I take what I've been learning and then go the next step and start getting paid to do it? And then maybe sometimes you get friends that will offer you, hey, can you come film my wedding? And you don't actually know what to respond to that, because you're not sure if you want to film weddings, and you're not sure if you film a wedding once, does that mean that you're going to film weddings for the rest of your life? What does it actually mean to get paid to make a video? And then let's say you start that conversation and they're like, okay, we've got $200, and you're doing the math in your head and you're like, the last lens I bought was 800 and my kit together was $3,000, and my computer, I need to upgrade that. And the math isn't working when people are like, hey, can you come make a video for us for $200? That's the position I found myself in. And it was this mixture of discouragement where I was like, how do I get to this level where I'm actually finishing projects for businesses I love? That was kind of this question that was looming on my mind. And I really am passionate about people that are in that similar spot, because I think I stayed in this mental paralysis of inaction for too long. So there was a multi-year period where I kind of was just in limbo, where I knew my skill set was good enough to do paid work, but I had no idea what it would actually take to start that process. And so I saw other people doing it. I wanted to do it, but I didn't know what to do next. And I was just frankly a little bit disappointed. And one thing I've learned is that the goal that I had set wasn't the problem. So I had this idea, hey, I could do video work paid and I could build a business out of that. That was the goal in my head. And I was like, and maybe to stretch it even a little further, I was like, maybe I'll even love the clients I work with and be really proud of the videos. Like, I won't just get paid to do it. Maybe I could do it and really love it too. So that was my goal. And the goal itself, that milestone I wanted to reach, wasn't the issue. The reason why I wasn't getting there wasn't because I didn't have a good enough goal. It's because I didn't have the steps in place to actually start taking action towards it. And so most people are hoping that there's some magic formula, that there's some button, some formula they can press that will, boom, suddenly they've got exposure, they've paid for these ads, and now people are finding them and hiring them. But truthfully, there's no like a quick button to press. So through a 3-year period, I put my nose to the grindstone, and I tried to figure out what are some steps that I can repeat every week, every month, where I can reliably start to build a business that I actually love, where it's not building someone else's business. It's not following someone else's version of success. I mean, for goodness sakes, I'm in a van right now in the forest, and this is my version of success. And whatever that is for you, you can actually start taking steps towards it, because it's really exciting, this modern era we live in, where you can build and go on your own path. I looked at all these other filmmakers and I tried to reverse engineer the path they took, and I was disappointed that my path wasn't working out the same way. But the truth is there's some principles that I needed to be applying that would have kind of radically shaped the journey that I was on, because I can't expect that things are going to work the exact same way for me as they did for someone previous to that. So if anybody's relating to that experience of wanting to be able to take the hobby to a full-time gig, or if they're already getting paid for some work, but they feel they're losing traction or they're not getting enough traction, I'd love to keep your attention here in this live stream, because I think we have some stuff that's going to be really valuable for you. And this is, I mean, we have the whole course on the material, but I really think that if you took some of the stuff we're going to share today and actually applied it, you're going to see some really cool results in 2020.
Yeah, man, it's exciting. I mean, I'm disappointed that there isn't a magic bullet. So that was I was sort of hoping that, there'd be that. But so yeah, let's dive into them. Let's dive in these four things.
Yeah, so the danger is just being up in your head and staying in your head. That's my mission, is to get people out of their head, out of their procrastination, and actually start doing real things. Because the truth is, if you just spend time on Instagram only doing new posts, trying to create a clean feed, if you just spend time trying to gain bigger followings without purpose, you're going to lack actually the ability to get to where you want to go. So there's a lot of things that feel like they're making progress that actually aren't helping you make progress. So we're spending time and we feel like we're doing the real hard work, but we're not actually doing the work at all yet. We're just doing the easy stuff. So things like signing up your business name, coming up with a brand name, coming up with a logo. Let's look at that as the easy stuff, because the real hard work is finding out, what can I make of value for clients that I want to work with? And is that thing of value going to make them money? Okay. And if what I can make for a business will make them money, how do I let them know that they should hire me to make that thing? Spending time focusing on those efforts is going to actually yield forward steps to where you're going, not necessarily just doing another Instagram post. But some of the busy work and the social media stuff is a lot of fun, and it is important for building a brand. But if you aren't doing the other stuff, you're going to just be spinning your wheels for potentially years without actually making forward progress. So for those that I know, some people have their pens out and they've got some text documents open, ready for some notes. We're going to go into the first one here. I've got 4 prepared, so you can know when I'm at the third one that there's 4 more, and you can ask questions as we go into it. But the first biggest thing that I see people do wrong, a rule here, is make work that you want to get hired for. I'm going to say that again. Actually make the work that you want to get hired for. I see far too often people will be stuck in making a single style of video, and they'll be really frustrated that a company that does NASCAR racing isn't hiring them to make their NASCAR videos. And that's their real passion. They really want to be making car videos, but all they've got in their portfolio is wedding films. And so they're stuck in this area where their true passion is right over here. They're making videos that have nothing to do with that, but it's making the money. And they're somewhere in between, and they're going, how do I actually bridge that gap? The most important thing is to actually show that you can make what you want to get hired for. And there's a lot of nuance there. So it's not just as simple as making a great video. It's not just as simple as making a passion project because you wanted to. There's kind of, in my head, there's passion projects that I make for fun, and knowing that there's a chance it'll elevate my brand just because I made it. But then there's also passion projects that I'm making with the determined effort, knowing if I make this, it will be a fantastic example to get hired to make that again. So let's kind of break this down. Is it bad to do free work? Well, free work on your own terms is a fantastic way to make work that you want to get hired for. But let's say you get an email in your inbox from someone that says, okay, someone's messaging you, hey, I saw on Instagram that you make some videos. I have this event coming up. Can you come film it? Unfortunately, we can't pay you, but it'll get you great exposure. That's a pretty common message to get from people, and it can feel a little just jarring. Sometimes those opportunities have something to them. So I don't want to say don't do those altogether, because that's not a rule that works. But how powerful would it be, instead of just waiting for someone to reach out to you to do something for free, what if you just sat back and thought, who is my ideal client? What is my ideal project? And then thinking, which brands would you just absolutely love to work for? Take that headspace, and then you approach a company and say, hey, here's me. I've made some videos in the past. I haven't made a video in the category of what your company is, but I really, really want to. And I'm super passionate. I'm hardworking, and I'm driven to make videos that make the companies I work for look great, make money, and do better. So if that's how you approach that company, and then you go, hey, would you be willing to take me on to make a video? So instead of just waiting for someone else to hit you up and go, yo, make me a free thing, please. And then you're like, well, maybe I should make the free thing because it's better than no thing. Unless it's a project that's going to move you forward, develop relationships, or add to your portfolio, say no to it and go find your own project that you really are passionate about. So an example for me, I went on a sailing trip with a company that sells these gorgeous wooden tall ships called Salts. And I went on this trip, and as just a paying attendee of the trip, I made my own video of it. And I was just really passionate about this video, and I put all this effort into it, and I put that out, and they were really excited about this finished video. And they asked, hey, can we pay? Can we buy this from you? And I was kind of just like, let's wait up a little minute. I don't think the video I made is what you're looking for. How about you hire me to come back and we'll make a video for real? So here's an instance where I just toiled over this video under the hopes that if I made it, maybe the company would hire me to make something better. So that's kind of my first rule. If you have a deck that you want built on your house, you're not going to hire the guy who's never built a deck before. And that's maybe a bit of a cheesy example, but if you don't actually have examples of what you're trying to get hired for, you're just fighting an uphill battle of persuasion. And maybe your sales skills are just 10 times what mine are, but you're going to have a really hard time actually convincing a prospect or an ideal client that they should hire you. But once you have a really solid example, we can supercharge that. So we unpack a lot of different ways to use a great example, but making sure you get a good testimonial from the client, making sure the client knows not to share with others that you did it for no charge, making sure that you actually took the client through a real process. And what a process is basically when you want to work with a company and make them a video, you don't want to just make them a video that's nice to have. You want to make them a video that makes them money, because that's why businesses pay to make things. So your process should probably include some phase of figuring out what could we make that would have a return. Because most businesses, if they know if they invest, they'll get a return. They're all ears. They're ready. They're ready to invest. So what is your process? Take a business through that, even if they aren't paying. And I mean, like, take them through as if they were paying you for real. So actually make up a proposal, make up an invoice, and then X out the numbers. Actually go through that emotional experience of fully pushing yourself after this. Because what will happen is that will most definitely leave an impression on this client. And your rule to them can be, hey, if you enjoyed working with me, consider hiring me again. And maybe that might not work out, but if other people in the industry see that finished product, it's going to look great for you, and they're going to try to figure out who made it. And if you do that, I'm nervous to say doing the free video thing lots of times. So I certainly wouldn't recommend that you do this a bunch, but 1 or 2 strategic efforts done well will yield great results if paired with a good marketing effort, relationship building effort alongside it. So if you have a great result and you can then get that in front of the right people, that's going to be really powerful.
Hey, Levi, how important was it for you to understand that wooden tall ship business? And so that when you're talking to them about, well, here's the video that you really need to make. It's not just pretty, but it moves the needle. How do you get that information? How do you research? How do you feel confident enough to approach them, with this pitch?
Yeah, I think that's a great example, because in my first communication back and forth with them, I was certainly misunderstanding. And my relationship with this company has now spanned most of my duration as a full-time filmmaker. So it's been cool to have my professionalism with them grow. But at first I was kind of just like, hey, let's make a great video. It'll be awesome. And at that point they were just like, well, we actually do have another promo video right now. It's working. And our ships are full every summer, so we don't really need a new video. That was kind of their response. I was like, oh, you're right. If your trips are full and you have a waiting list, you don't actually need a new video. And I was kind of like, huh. So we didn't end up discussing again until about 2 years later. They had an instance where they actually had some availability where they didn't have some bunks filled. So they kind of reached back out, and that, thankfully, I had the skill set at that point to just learn, get them on the phone and have a conversation and try to discover, like, what are the problems that your business is facing. And sometimes if the business doesn't have the answer to those questions, you're going to have a very difficult time convincing them that a video is worth it. And that's actually one of our rules down here. But it's going to be very challenging to persuade them that spending money is worth it if they aren't already aware of what their problems are. So some of my absolute favorite businesses to work with are ones that actually understand what their business is and what problems they're facing to unlock more potential for them. So I kind of came in and just asked, like, hey, what's preventing you from filling these bunks? And we kind of went through and realized that most kids, their summer now is becoming pretty packed because they're geared towards teenage kids in the summer, and they've got all these great options. And it's really difficult for a parent, even if the parent believes in the program, to convince their child that it's worth it to spend time on this boat. So if we could solve that relationship between parent and child, where the parent actually has the tools to share with their child, you're going to have a great experience. It's not going to be awful. You're going to make friends. It's going to be fun. It's going to be worth your time. If we could solve that dynamic, that's a big win. So we kind of set that as a banner for the project. But then also, if it's cool enough for the kids and we get, teenagers excited about it, how do we equip the teenager to then communicate to their parent that it's a worthwhile investment the other way? So we kind of got this cross relational thing happening. Mm-hmm. And the way we built the video then was very much driven towards that. So the first 30 seconds, 30, 45 seconds is very much driven towards high action, high adventure for the teenagers. So they're not immediately turned off. And then as the story unfolds, it gives some of the purpose behind the trip. So that way the parents understand, hey, this is actually a really valuable thing to send my child to.
Okay, got it. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you there, but I was curious about how much prep work goes into that. Okay, so you talked about, I know in the workshop, you talked a lot about, how do you want to be remembered as a filmmaker?
Yeah, this is something that we mistakenly leave up to other people. And you see this happen a lot on Instagram or YouTube or on someone's webpage. You show up there and you have no idea what they're about. It's just this mirage of whatever. And you can't figure out who this person is, what they make. So you might be able to figure out on the top level, hey, this person's a filmmaker. Cool. Like at this day and age of democratization of filmmaking, basically anybody and everybody can give the impression that they're a filmmaker. So when a company is having a meeting, trying to decide who they want to hire next, how do you make sure that you're actually brought up? Well, one of the key things is actually being remembered. And the most helpful thing I've discovered for being remembered is tell people how you want to be remembered. Actually take ownership. Don't just leave it up to chance of how some company is going to interpret what it is that you do. So Donald Miller, he does these website breakdowns and he calls it the grunt test. So when someone shows up at your website, can they figure out in seconds what it is you're about? So right now, if you go to leftcoast.co, you'll be able to figure out in just fractions of a second what it is that I'm trying to position what I do to the market. We make adventure films for outdoor brands. Figuring out that statement, figuring out how I want to be remembered is a really intimidating thing when I was starting out. I had no idea how to do that. And what was most scary was if I say I'm this, does that mean I'm not going to get hired for the opportunities that I still want to do that aren't this exact thing? So what I've learned here, if you actually do be bold and put out, this is who I am, this is what I'm offering, and narrow that down. We'll talk about the narrowing down in a moment. But if you actually do that, you'll find the opportunities will increase even outside of that category because people can actually remember you. A good test here is if you ever meet up with some friends and have them introduce who they think you are. And as they describe what you currently do with your work or what types of stuff you're currently making, listen to how they're describing it. And if it doesn't align with where you want to be going, so let's say, yeah, Levi you make wedding films, right? Like that's what you make. If that's what they say, but you really want to be moving into spec commercials for jewelry stores, but they didn't say that, what you've got to do is start getting a lot more loud about how you want to be remembered. So this is so multifaceted, but this is basically what a brand is, in my opinion. It's a representation of how you want to be remembered and these values of where you want to go. So it's not just a logo. It's not just a name that goes underneath or a tagline. It's actually how people remember your promise to the world. So be strategic about what you're putting out there. If you're putting out photos of basically every type of video you've ever worked on, unless you want to get hired for all those videos, you probably should only be showing projects that you actually want to get hired for. So that way, when people show up, they know what to expect. It seems kind of bold for me to say, only having made one paid outdoor video, that I make adventure films for outdoor brands. But that's the decision I made at the start of my career where I really wanted to narrow down what it is that I offered. And what that did is it didn't limit the opportunities, but it helped actually people. Once people started to introduce me as the adventure filmmaker, the first couple of times that happened, I was a little thrown off. I was like, oh boy, like, do I deserve to be called that? I definitely felt imposter syndrome, but it's been super powerful to see what happens across 3, 4, even 5 years. When you really embody that and put that out there, people will start to actually remember you as that thing. And yes, it can evolve, it can change, it can grow. But if you're putting out just a mushy middle in between, the middle, it doesn't work anymore. People aren't hiring the middle generic. And if they are, it's because they want them to do technician work. And technician work is okay, but sometimes you just have to ask, what do you want to do more of, and what kind of business do you want to run? And at a certain point, technician work can get a little bit exhausting. So take ownership, tell them what you want to be hired for. That's something that we just don't do enough of. And we can start doing that right now, especially if we've made a really good example of what we want to get hired for.
Yeah, that's it's just all about being bold and being daring and kind of owning it. I mean, nobody else is going to believe it until you believe it, and you're not going to believe it until you start saying it out loud and hearing it. So those are 2 of your 4 things, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's take a second about, we got a bunch of questions here. What are you getting there on your YouTube site, Levi?
Oh yeah. I've been letting them fly by me here real quick. Yeah, so I'll catch up quick.
We had one that was pointed out to us on YouTube that I thought was really good. And kind of, Levi, I want you to answer the question from YouTube, but I also want you to answer something else that's related. So Solo Bird asks, what is smarter when you're starting out as a filmmaker? Is it better to invest in expensive gear that's really high quality, or go ahead and invest in the cheap gear and then upgrade to the quality stuff over time? I think that's a really good question, but I want to ask you the same question as it regards to getting free work. Like, is it better to hold out for paid work until you can get it, or is it better to accept free work? You touched on this a little bit, but like in your experience, like how many free projects did you take when you were breaking in? What did it specifically look like for you? Because that's a question that I in the past, I've helped advise a lot of young independent filmmakers in getting their careers off the ground. And that's one of the biggest questions that everybody's running into. Like, how do you actually build your reel, and how many free projects should I take? So if you could share a little bit about that, and then also answer the gear question, I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah. With gear, I almost always encourage people. I mean, if you're working a part-time job and saving up money, or a full-time job, and you have disposable income to invest what you're able to without over exceeding yourself. But believing that by getting new gear is going to get you clients is a disaster. Maybe at some point that was true, but if companies don't see finished work that actually adds value in the marketplace, they're probably not going to hire you. If a wedding couple doesn't see that you can make a finished video, they're not going to hire you. So if you go out and drop $2,000 on a lens, but don't have a finished video, it's kind of all pointless. So one of the things that I push people to, instead of being so driven around gear, you can actually get away with doing work for other people that have gear in exchange for borrowing. So that was a really powerful thing for me at the beginning. I reached out to other production companies that were in the area, and I did free work for some companies, something that, hey, it's actually a good learning opportunity to see how other people work. And I'm fine carrying bags for a day. But then in return, you get to take all their equipment for one day and go do your own. And the value exchange there is actually really disproportionate. So you showing up, maybe for that day, you would have been paid $200-300, maybe $500 at most, if you're just doing producer style help. But then if you wanted to rent all that equipment, you're paying thousands upon thousands sometimes. So that's a really powerful hack where it doesn't cost them money to lend the gear. Not every company is set up to do proper rentals. So that's something that I did when I was starting, and then just slowly tried to add pieces of gear. So some pieces of gear are a good long-term investment, and some of them are just for the moment. So right now, camera bodies are definitely an in-the-moment purchase decision. But certain things like tripods, lights, audio gear, that's all going to last you from camera to camera to camera. So I tried to think about which of these purchases are 5 to 10 year purchases, and which one is 6 months to 2 year purchases, because you don't want to make too many of this 6 months to 2 year purchases. And you got to just get the basics. You got to have an audio recorder if you want to start recording weddings at a ceremony. You got to have some lights if you want to start doing interviews, and getting those foundational pieces. Basically, we talk about this technique called the ladder technique, and we're not going to break it down here. We go full on detail in it in the workshop, but each project that I worked at the beginning, I tried to ratchet up the production value for each one. So that way I had every time I made a video, I was trying to improve one aspect. So that way the next time I could point to that as my example. So if you go back to some of my very beginning stuff, some of it that's no longer listed on the internet, the audio was terrible. But then the next video, I had the little mic on the shirt. I had a lapel going to recorder, and it was better. And then the next video, hey, there's some light getting used. And then the next video had some intentional camera movement. And that was, so each kind of project that I work on, I try to make an investment in one piece. That was at the beginning. So that's kind of the way I approach gear. And then I think that question on how much work is too free work and how long does that take? I did get an emailed version of that question as well that I think we should spend a touch more time on. So we'll probably hit that one here in a moment after maybe another lesson or two. Was there another quick question I could hit up?
I think that I'm reminded, I just actually went back through Levi's course, which was awesome. And I remember that slide that says full price or free. And I think that, he goes into much more depth on like what that means and everything in the actual course. But I mean, it's totally true. Like the stuff that you put out is going to be what people are going to ask and say, hey, I really like this thing. Like, can you make that? And if you're doing it for free, like that's going to be the same thing. Those people are going to be like, well, why can't you do it for me for free? And that's like a very specific thing of saying, hey, I'm going to do this for you and we're going to learn together. But you have to, when people ask, you say that's $20,000 project. That's like the way that like kind of partnership helps both people. So with that, Heath says, I do free work all the time and I enjoy just making things. But now people want me to do stuff for them and it takes up most of my time. What advice would you give for me? So maybe talk a little bit about that, Levi.
Well, Levi and I were talking about this earlier, the idea that it's like, hey, if you come to me and ask me to do it for free, well, that's not my rule. If I find it interesting and I think that it's something that is on target with what I want to do, then, I'll approach you with it. Now, obviously not an absolute rule, but I think that, that's what you talked about.
Yeah. And I do know, and it's sad when it happens, but I have seen people in the past get stuck in a cycle of free. And what's happening there, I think, is it's primarily a perspective shift on it's incorrectly, if you're trying to move to doing more paid stuff and you're stuck in this cycle of free, I would say for a moment, just stop doing all the free stuff altogether. Just stop. Just like take a breather, and then go ask yourself really critically, what do I want to do more of? And that question can be really, really scary, actually. And so what I'd recommend is experiment. If you keep doing stuff in the same category and every time you're taking back the same lessons, you're not going to learn something new. So if you just know categorically you don't like event videos, probably don't keep doing event videos for free, because you're not going to learn or take away an example for that you're going to be really proud of. So maybe once you realize one category isn't working, put an X over that and try to actually ask yourself, who could I approach to make a great free thing for? And that free word trips a lot of people up. My friend Sean McCabe uses a word called pro bono, for the common good. So use what word works for you, but again, do it on your own terms and do it with a level of intentionality where this finished result is going to work great for me. And someone was asking earlier about, the demo reel. How important is it to pack out that reel with stuff that looks impressive? Truthfully, these days, I'm not sure how important it is to have a demo reel that makes it look packed out, that you do all these amazing things. What I do think is way more powerful is having an example of something that actually worked for a business. So if we use this salts video for an example, that is a great example for me going forward because I have a video that made Salts money. So on my website, what I really should have, and I don't have there, is a story about what process we went through to get to that result. But even that I don't have that story, that case study, I get emails like about every month from another sailing company from somewhere in the world that goes, hey, I saw the video you made for them and I won it. So this is kind of really cool where if you make something that's really fantastic in a category, other people will start to notice. And so we're going to jump to a rule here that I put as number 4, but we're going to make it number 3. You need to realize that some markets just don't spend money. And by trying to enter those markets, you're going to have a really bad time. So kind of a silly example, if you're really passionate about making toothpick structures and making videos about those toothpick structures, there's a really good chance that you're going to run up against a wall about how many people want to pay you to make those kinds of videos. So where are companies spending money? What types of companies are spending money? Is there an intersection there where your interests and what you enjoy doing aligns with those things? Because it is far easier to work with someone who has already spent money on video before or is already primed to the idea that marketing is helpful. Trying to convince someone from a zero, let's say someone's at a zero, we got a mom and pop shop who's always ran their business off just a sign on their front door, and you're trying to convince them spending thousands of dollars on a finished video is worthwhile. A couple things. Maybe making the video actually isn't worthwhile, so you need to ask the right questions. But having that conversation and getting them from zero to investing a bunch in a video is going to be a process. It's going to be a relationship. It might take months or years. So it's much easier to pick up with a potential client or to approach potential clients and do work in an area where companies are indeed already spending money. And this is where the wedding industry is a beautiful place for people to cut their teeth, to build really beautiful businesses for long-term, or also just figure out the fundamentals, because weddings, they're happening every year. They're happening to your friends. They're happening to people all around you. You probably know someone that got married last year. And those people are willing to spend money on some sort of video. And there's a range here of how much they're willing to spend and what kind of wedding it is, and even what vibe of wedding. And there's all these different categories, even within the broad category of wedding. But people are spending money on wedding videos, and what people have done in the past are probably going to do again in the future. So if you're trying to get started with video and you're in this frustrated state where you're like, people aren't hiring me to make things, well, you need to ask yourself, what market is actually spending money and how can I break into this? And this can be helpful through just finding a community of international filmmakers, so you get a sense of a pulse of what's going on. It's why I've paid to be actually a member of the Academy in the past. It's why I really value relationships with other people that make things for money, because it helps just anchor you to what's working. But I can't stress enough that you're going to have it's going to be a lot simpler of a process to work with someone who's already primed for making a video. It's very, very, very tough to take someone from a 0 to even a 5 or a 6 where they're actually willing to put money behind it. So if you enjoy doing weddings, or maybe if you just want to do a paid project as your first one, a wedding film is actually really great because it forces you to sit down for coffee with a couple and convince them or share with them why they should separate with their hard-earned money for you to make a video about them. And that conversation, building up the skill set to communicate here, because the second that you get to a point where you're trying to convince people to try to persuade them, that's, in my opinion, we're entering a category of sales that I don't enjoy. I don't enjoy convincing people. I have so much more fun working with clients that value and respect what I do. So that's kind of one of my rules here. We're making that rule number 3. Markets that are currently spending will spend again. So don't try to enter toothpick filmmaking. There's going to be one guy out there. There's got to be one guy that's going to be the toothpick filmmaker. And one of these days he's going to reach out and let me know that he makes millions, and I'm going to bite my tongue. But yeah.
No, I think that's that'll be surprising if he's making millions of dollars. It actually sounds like the perfect passion project. Okay, so if that's number 3 now, then what's number 4?
Number 4 is, if we're following the rules here in order and we've got an example project we're proud of, if we've been telling people how to remember us, if we've been trying to get into a market that actually does spend money and intersects with what we enjoy doing. Because sometimes you want to break out of wedding films because you just don't enjoy it. It doesn't matter how much money is being spent there. You just don't want to keep doing it. You don't want to keep doing corporate events. Even if they're paying you thousands and thousands of dollars, you're just done. So the fourth rule that I've got here is actually make an offer for the type of work you want to get hired for. And this as well ties into branding, but make a promise that the thing you did before you could do again. So it's not just enough sometimes to have a finished project, but you need to, on your website or your production company, wherever people can go to find out what you do, make sure that it's communicated. Hey, I'm willing to do this again for you. And truthfully, the more specific you can be with that offer, the more likely the person who interprets it and it's just for them is going to feel like it's going to be a great fit. And you really want that fit like a glove experience. Those are the projects that just go amazing. Those are the projects where everyone's energized and there's challenging moments in the project, but it's worth pushing through those challenges because your values are aligned and because it's so worthwhile. So be bold with your promise. If you want to make nonprofit NGO films in South Africa in a specific city, make that as your offer so that way people actually know that that's the case. I realized I spent a whole summer and a ton of my own money making a passion project, spending all this time on a film. And I made this thing. I tried to make it look as if I had spent even more money than I did and that I had worked on it with a massive team. And this film, you can see it on right now on YouTube. It's called Untethered. And I released that in 2015 in December there. And I forgot to make the promise that even though I made this documentary, I'd be willing to make promo videos for outdoor companies. So who knows how much business I missed out on that encountered the film, but probably just assumed Levi's too busy making these outdoor documentaries. We can't hire him. Or even at that point, I was so willing to work for, even $1,500 for a video, $2,000 for a video. That was not out of the range of what I was willing to do. And yet no one knew locally that they could hire me to do those things because I didn't even have that as my offer. So make sure you have offers that are appropriate for different categories. And a good lesson here is actually to learn from the way Apple has done things. And some people are asking down below, is it good to have different web pages for different branches? So let's address that real quick. Sometimes when you're trying to split into multiple areas, you will do each one of those areas so poorly that they won't hire you for any. So my recommendation is do start with one category till one of those hits traction. So keep trying to reinvent it. Keep trying to workshop it till one of them is working. Then maybe in addition, you can add. But what I've always found is one of them will suffer to the other. But let's say you are an Apple of the world, or for instance, a Left Coast. For me, I do sailing outdoor videos and I have very specific targeted marketing for sailing companies that is different than the marketing and the promotional efforts I do for a normal outdoor company. So I've got this little category here that I'm super specialized in, but then I also have a bit more of a generic. And you'll notice when Apple, they've changed their website over the years, but when you used to go there used to be these different pathways that you could click through. It would say Mac for business, Mac for education, Mac for, I can't remember what the third one was. Maybe it was like home life or something like that. And as the customer ending up on Apple's website, immediately you're categorizing yourself and going, oh yeah, I want to use something for business. Or, oh, hey, this is for home life. And right when you start clicking through each one of those pathways, you're now on a journey where Apple has specifically written just to you about how you could use this in your life. And so there's these three different pathways. And the wild thing is that at the end of the day, you end up with the exact same laptop, iPad, or iPhone or something like that. It's all the same product, but the way that they're positioning it to you is different. And this kind of hurt my head a little bit at first because I was trying to think through how could I do that in my own company? And I don't have that on my main webpage. But what I do when someone emails me, I will immediately follow up with really specific examples of how I've helped a company like them before, usually linking to the videos and sometimes doing more detailed case studies. So I really rely on email communication. And when someone arrives at my website that I want to work with, the first thing I want them to do is request a proposal, to hit that green button. So I make it just super obvious on my website. It's the loudest, greenest button there. And I want to get those proposals because the second that that comes in, I can decide, is this worth spending more effort to customize my messaging to? So if I get a message that's from a sailing company, I'm like, oh boy, game on, let's go. And I go and I copy and paste this template that describes how I've helped sailing companies in the past. And I'm hyped through that whole process to get them on the phone, because I know that what I can do could be specialized for them. But then at the same time, let's say I get an offer that is an outdoor company that wants to launch a new product, and it's going to go, whatever category it is, but I've never worked with that type of company before. My marketing effort to them through I guess that's not marketing, that's lead follow-up. That effort is going to look different for the specific people that message me. And that's how I enjoy doing it. I could maybe try to build a fancier website, but kind of filtering it through in the inbox has worked fantastic. Who's been taking notes? Did you guys write some of this stuff down? I would love to know if there's been a takeaway, or if this is actually connecting with you. I'd love to hear what's kind of standing out, and maybe what are your objections in your head as you're hearing this, is because I'm not trying to make this too simple, but I am trying to give you, if you're stuck, if you're in the middle and you don't know where to go, start trying to do some of these things, because you will see results by doing them.
Yeah, I can't take notes. I'm watching and I'm involved with the webinar. I'm actually a day player, but I am going to watch the recording later.
It's okay, David. Aisha in the chat is taking notes for you.
So good. Oh my gosh, Aisha's our study partner.
Oh, hey.
I love that. That's perfect. Maxwell, do you usually see anything that?
Yeah, Levi, there's Brennan has a question here. When your gear isn't keeping you from growing your business, how do you connect with more potential clients outside of where you live? Which I think is specific to you, and talking about like where you come from and like how kind of small that was and how you grew it out.
And to add to that, there's a similar question from Travis Levi, who wonders if you ever advertise in cities that you want to travel before going there. So like finding clients outside your current area, but also like, are you able to get clients to pay for trips to the places that you want to go already? Very similar question. So
yeah, I'll touch on the advertising one first. I haven't done that, but I do know the strategy, the tools that we have available through advertising platforms like Facebook right now are pretty absurd. What you can do is very helpful, and you can make sure that money is actually really well spent. So I recommend people, if they're trying to do more work in their hometown, you can set a radius of where you're spending money. So let's say you're having a hard time being remembered, make some sort of short clip about who you are and what you do, make it relatable, spend, however much you're willing to in a given month, multi-month period, and just target it to within 5 kilometers or whatever range of businesses. Let's say you're trying to target a downtown area, just target that area specifically. And that will be a helpful way to get people aware that you exist. And you'll just start to become, I call it, I don't know if it's actually a real thing. It's probably, people have probably written blog posts about it, but in my head, I call it the Squarespace effect, where for a long time, they were the biggest spenders on podcasts. And so people just associated podcast advertising with Squarespace. You can achieve that same effect by showing up repeatedly in front of people over and over and over again in your own area to be remembered. And as far as expanding that to cities that I'm traveling to, for me, I almost always press into relationship. That's where I feel more comfortable, and I'm totally not equipped for the business development stuff of doing external research and outbound stuff like that. Where if I did unlock that, that would probably open up a whole new chapter of what I'm doing. And I should probably look into that. So maybe I need to hire a biz dev guy. But what was that, Maxwell? What was that first one that you touched on there?
Yeah, when gear isn't keeping you from growing your business, how do you connect with potential clients outside of where you live and work?
Yeah, connecting with people outside of where you live is challenging. And for me, it does come back to, and it's not a fair answer, but it comes back to having great representations of what it is that you do and being able to get that message out there that it worked. Because what you'll find is most of the people, if they're in similar business areas, are aware of what other businesses are doing and what's working. So let's say there's a category of event organizers, and if you build a relationship with an event organizer, they're going to recommend you to the person running the event to do the video because working with you was such a breeze last time. Well, unless that relationship has started, getting into that world is going to be tough. But once you are in that world, you might become the go-to person for hundreds of events in a year, and you've suddenly unlocked a whole new business category for yourself that you could then start hiring out other teams to go shoot, and you don't even have to be involved in. So that to me is the power of relationship, and actually getting your foot in the door with a single person in a single category, but then actually staying there for the distance. Because I think a lot of the times it just happens too fast, where it's just like the message on Instagram, hey, let's connect, and there's no follow-up, or hey, let's grab a coffee, let me pick your brain, or hey, let's meet, let's network. And the problem with that is that if it's never followed up with long-term relationship, people severely undervalue the depth of relationship you could build over 5 years of repeatedly being a person that's just there. So even if a market isn't ready, even if a business isn't ready to hire you, but you think that there could be a way in on that, be persistent, because there's tons of other people that are giving up way earlier than you. And it might not even come down to who's got the best video. It's who's top of mind. Who do I know to reach out of? Who do I know to reach out to? So even for me, a tough part about making YouTube videos is that a lot of people reach out and go, hey, I'd love to help. And that is like, I do not take that for granted at all, but it's really challenging for me to mentally catalog where these people are from. So when I'm actually ready to need help, I don't even know how to, I'm getting all these offers, which is fantastic. People that want to work for free just to learn, but I don't even know how to take them up on that offer. So take away as many obstacles as you can in between you and getting hired. So just make it really clear what the process could be to initiate the next steps. Sometimes for a company, you just need to be able to say, hey, for me to make a video, it's going to be this number, and I'll do it repeatedly at that number. Maybe it'll increase year by year. Certain models that actually works great because they're intimidated by reaching out because they're nervous you're going to cost more, and they don't want to go through this big fancy process every time. So just by giving them a rate that you're willing to do a cookie cutter project for, like an event video, that actually enables them to go, hey, I can apply, they know how to spreadsheet and budget that into whatever they're working on. And they'll know Levi's my $3,000 event video guy. Let's give him a ring. They might have a $10,000 video guy, but someone producing events knows that, you know, there's a range of things going on and not everyone can use the best person all the time. So that's kind of some of my thoughts on how to get into new markets, but it's not a simple one action item. And I do think people severely undervalue relationship. So if you maximize on that and just provide value first, if you try to, you know, be the person that's giving instead of taking, that will inevitably always come back and really benefit what you're doing.
Again, this is really just tree topping everything that, Levi's course is like 4 hours or something. I mean, it's kind of extraordinary. When we launched the first cohort of this, the completion rate was like 87%, which is extraordinarily high. You know, we find that, you know, people have, sorry, I'm trying so hard.
Is that businesses calling you for, they see that you're live with Levi?
People are saying, please, will you do a free video for me? By the way, when friends or people used to call and ask for free videos, I would go, dude, I will totally help you move your couch or paint your house. But making videos is how I make my money. Yeah, I mean, it's extraordinarily high completion rate.
86%?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know what, I mean,
that's so cool. That makes me so relieved. And also going into this, I was so nervous because I heard completion rates for courses are like under 20%.
Oh yeah, they're terrible. And you know, really that shaped a lot of the content that we do. You know, we at the Academy, these are the kinds of courses that we focus on are, you know, life experience courses that help build that bridge so you can get over it, not, hey, here's how you use this piece of equipment and this is why this piece of equipment is so good. I mean, Levi is certainly, I think it's safe to say, mostly like a equipment agnostic. You know, we certainly are here, but we have our go-tos. You know, we have our favorites. Levi and I were talking about, like, you know, we love Westcott for what Westcott does and how easy it is. When do you use Westcott, but when do you use them, and when do you use like Aperture?
Yeah, so I have kind of a range of lights that I've built up over the years, and someone was asking questions about what gear to invest in earlier, and I so under prioritized lighting, and I wish I
Yeah.
had. I've only started to develop my lighting skills, really the basics of them, in the past 2 years more intentionally, and that was a big misstep on my part. Um, Sometimes I'm using lights that are really bright and powerful in the outdoors and single source kind of chip on board lights with soft boxes. But then most times, if I'm doing a backpacking project, it can be really difficult to bring in those larger lights. And so I also have these flex panels from Westcott, which I'm actually being lit by a flex panel right now, just because.
As are we.
We are too.
Oh,
Yeah.
do you guys have the 1x3, or what do you?
We
is it
have
a bigger one?
two 1x2s, and then we have two ice lights. I'll actually just do a wide really quick, but yeah.
The ice lights are great too.
So there's
Oh yeah.
two, and then we got like this guy just like flying down. Yeah, we love them though.
All the gearheads are gonna love that behind the scenes look. So the Westcott
I'm being
panels
lit by two fluorescent lights above me.
Yeah.
And some sunshine pouring in, but through the clouds in the window.
So
And then aperture.
yeah, the flex panels are fantastic just because of their profile and how literally it's in the name, the flex panel. But it when you have an LED panel, it's already starting to diffuse the light. So usually you need to get it in pretty close to the subject if you're shooting outdoors, or it needs to be closer in the evening. But it gets you softer light without needing massive modifiers. So to actually soften the light, you got to sometimes put it through like a sheet of cloth or a softbox. So that's what I like about the flex panels. And that was actually the first portable lighting kit that I ever had, was the flex panels.
Got it. And then, when we launched the Academy, Kessler was really a foundational partner. It was a very first partner we ever went to. So obviously huge fans of that. You use a Kessler slider. Do you use the second shooter, but what do you use it with?
Yeah, so I have the shortest length of Kessler slider. I believe it's the Stealth 2-foot version, the Traveler. And this is kind of my shortcut for upping my production value without needing a larger team, because I really enjoy shooting small team stuff. So that kind of what does my motorized back and forth B cam shot on my corporate interviews. And then I also use it for my personal YouTube stuff sometimes and for time lapses. So the second shooter, that's literally what it is. It's an additional person on your team that is probably going to be more reliable than an actual real person. So that the second shooter is an investment that's kind of paid itself forward in so many ways. And I became an ambassador. I think I'm almost certain Kessler's the first company that I became an ambassador for, just because I was so stoked on what they made. So Kessler stuff is incredible, and made in the US too, which is really becoming more and more rare these days.
In the heart of Indiana.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, we're going to have to wrap this up. I just want to real quickly mention that Levi's got this really cool thing happening mid-December on YouTube. You're going to be talking about, if you're interested in starting a YouTube channel, Levi, you're going to be talking about that. And then Alex, I wanted you to just real quickly, talk about what kind of equipment deals we have, and then what kind of follow-up we're going to have to the webinar.
Yeah, for sure. No, and it's good that we are talking about gear, because it's a natural transition in. So we've got a bunch of different gear partners who've given us codes that you can use on top of their Black Friday and Cyber Monday specials. So it's kind of amazing. Westcott, we have a 15% off code that we will be able to send to everybody. And they're running a whole bunch of Cyber Monday and Black Friday deals right now. I was on the phone with Red Rock Micro, and they've given us a code for 20% off on any of their rigs or any of their accessories.
Wow. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and then Panasonic has actually started their Black Friday sale a little bit early, and they've given us a link to share with you all as well. And so we'll be able to get you access to that.
And then, we, I don't know that we'll be able to share this with you right away, but, we love the guys at Soundstripe. If you haven't looked at them, you haven't checked them out, it's amazing. They've grown so much. Really, really wonderful people there. And so they're going to be sharing some stuff with us, and we'll get that out to you right away, hopefully in the next few days. Yeah. Alex, is all this stuff going to come to them by way of email, the coupon codes and everything?
Yeah, we'll be sending an email with links for all of this stuff and with the coupon code so that you can get your discounts shortly after the webinar here. Pedro had a question and asked if there's a chance for attendees to get a discount on the Academy courses, which is a great question. So the Academy Pro membership, which has all of the courses that we have at Story and Heart, is actually closed right now. We're not taking new Academy Pro members until probably the late winter, early spring of 2020. What we are doing is we actually have a series of workshop bundles that we are putting together for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And so for anyone who's on the call right now, actually, I can drop a link in the chat right here. We have we have a few things. So first of all, there's Levi's workshop, which is called niching down to scale up. The whole idea is essentially taking everything that we've been talking about on this call, going in even more detail and giving people a step-by-step process that you can use to find a niche that you love and that will make you money as a filmmaker, and then grow your business so that you can actually do something that you want to do with your time. And so we have that available, but everybody who signs up for that today will also get Inside the Mind of Maddie Brown. And David or Maxwell, can one of you two actually go into a little bit more detail?
Well, yeah, tell you what, listen, just go to Vimeo and search Maddie Brown.
Maddie's he's a mad scientist, a filmmaker.
Right.
Yeah.
He is. Maddie's brilliant, wonderful. He's the sweetest guy in the world. And yeah, I mean, if you don't know who Maddie is, then you should definitely discover him. And yeah, he's a gift. So we definitely wanted to include that because while their approaches are totally different, Levi and Maddie are both just super passionate about what they do. And even though they've never met, they would be best friends if they did.
Yeah, and about the workshop bundles. So we've put together a workshop bundle that we're making available right now called the Business of Filmmaking bundle. And so for anybody that signs up for Levi's course, if you want to upgrade to get the Business of Filmmaking bundle, it includes Levi's workshop, and it also includes 3 other workshops in addition to the Maddie Brown course with Inside the Mind of Maddie Brown. So the Levi's course is $297. And you can, for an extra $100, get all of the other workshops about the business of filmmaking that are currently part of the Academy right now. Total value of all the workshops put together is over $1,000. And so this is a really phenomenal chance that you have to snag those savings while they're here.
And we are going to make this recording available to you because this was amazing stuff. So look, check your email. Alex will be sending all that information out. We would love for you to become part of the community. We, of course, would love you to take Levi's course. Where the completion rate thing is just sort of a stat. You just have to, you just have to know that that is really indicative of how helpful this is. Listen, we have a business. People ask for refunds all the time. Nobody's ever asked for a refund of Levi's course. It's just amazing. It totally changes filmmakers' perspective and their careers.
Yeah, I mean, when we first we did our first cohort of this, and when I first was starting to talk on my YouTube channel and to places about this existing, I was nervous about it because it didn't feel like, I don't know, it's tough as a creator to get loud about the things you're making, but truthfully, that was such a cool experience to be involved with that first cohort and to see just the stories that came out of that, of people like out of the blue, months later, I'm getting messages from people saying, I just landed my first $15,000 job. Thank you. And that to me is just, it's really cool because I want people to take this that are ready to do the work, because it's a process and it's a long-term game and mission and effort, and it's going to be a journey. But the people that are feeling the hunger to go after it, the concepts that we talk about aren't just my own. They're principles that I'm trying to pull in and deliver them to you in a way that I think could resonate, because this is stuff that, it's one thing to look at someone who's already been doing it for 2 decades and go, yeah, well, you're just saying that because you're already there. But I can so literally feel like what it was just like even years ago when the emails weren't coming and I was disappointed and I was bummed out and I was trying to ask myself, should I keep doing this as my thing? And I want to try talk to people like that are in that place and show them, there's steps you can start taking right now that will make a meaningful difference with where you're at. And it's going to be a little bit of hard work, but it's going to be a lot more fun if you do it together with other people. And you can get to a place where you're actually proud of what you make and work with clients you love. And that's something that I am getting more and more passionate about. And it's happening because the response has been so positive. And so I would be thrilled if that's you. I'd love to have you in the next cohorts of the course, just because I truthfully do think if you actually apply this stuff, it will make a massive difference for you.
Can you still see Maxwell and I?
I can see. I can still.
Yeah, I've got both of you.
Okay, great. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. Levi, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Listen, we learn stuff from you all the time. So be on the lookout for the email. Levi, have a great Thanksgiving. Everybody on the call, have a great, your Thanksgiving is a different time.
That's okay. I still celebrate. It's all good.
Okay. Yeah, and that's perfect. All right. So everyone have a great Thanksgiving, great holiday, and we'll see y'all all soon. All righty.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
See you, everyone.
Bye.